Hi, Dan and Dorian. How are you both today?
Hey Tiff, great to be here.
Hey Tiff, doing great. Thanks for having me.
Good. I'm happy to connect with you both. As you both know, we've been doing this series between Netlify and Stackbit, where it's a four-part series going through personalization and A/B testing. And in previous episodes, I connected with Selma, who is a developer experience engineer at Netlify, and then also to Sean, who is the DevX here at Stackbit. And we took this Next.js project and really built it out, implementing both Netlify and Stackbit. And to tie it all together, I'm here today connecting with you both from the business, the marketing side of things. So really happy to connect with you. But before we dive into it, for those of who are tuning in who aren't as familiar with either of you, maybe a little bit of background on both of you. Dan, I'll start with you first. If you could tell us about yourself.
Yes, for sure. So I have started as an engineer, by education and my very first moves in my career. I was always entrepreneurial, so founded a startup pretty early on, closed it up, moved into product management, spent a lot of my time learning how to be a great product manager at Facebook and Lyft, and then kind of recently, 4.5 years ago, founded Stackbit, and served as the CEO, leading and working on everything around product and sales and stuff like that.
That sounds great. Thanks, Dan. What about yourself, Dorian?
Yeah, so my name is Dorian Kendal, CMO at Netlify. I come a little bit of a different route. I actually started my career in consulting. So I was very, the agency experience is very near and dear to my heart. It's sort of where I started doing major projects and software implementations for big enterprise companies, and then moved there to having my own consulting business for quite a while. And that really just got me excited about the world of marketing. And so I made a transition in my career and then had some great stints at Google, a company called Trulia, which was later acquired by one of our rivals, then a company called Unity, where I led a large part of the marketing endeavors, and then here at Netlify.
That sounds great. You both have had a very interesting journey to lead you here today. Dorian, it's interesting. I have a kind of a similar background from the consulting side, so I feel your passion for agencies and working with others and whatnot.
Absolutely.
All right, let's dive into it. The first question I had for you both is, many enterprises use both either Stackbit, Netlify, and many use both together. But in terms of, Dan, I'll start with you for Stackbit. What are some challenges that you have seen enterprises are faced with that Stackbit really solves?
Mm-hmm. I think enterprises have usually a set of very complex constraints and requirements. It's based on various teams working together, often acquiring other companies, having like legacy systems that run back many years, and they end up with a complicated tech stack and a lot of cross-functional teams and stakeholders that need to collaborate to make the web and other digital surfaces work for them. And that is a big challenge, and they almost can never just pick up a product off the shelf and it will just work with all their workflows and systems. And so they end up either having to build something of their own or compromise, right? And try to use suboptimal systems and try to somehow make them fit together. And having this new composable world is a great solution for them, because they can pick either the best in class or the most fitting in class for them. So if they need to have a very sophisticated content management system, then they can opt in for the best in class and pick that. If they have simple needs, they can use something much cheaper and then upgrade later on as they need to. Depends on how much they're doing personalization and experimentation, to the point of this whole series. So I think this is where it enables them, this whole new world enables them to create something that's tailored for their needs without having to build it from scratch. And this way they're getting the tools that get updated with the latest technology and all the best features that they can hope for. And making them like building their own digital experience platform, if you will.
That's great. I know, to kind of add on to what you're saying, I know one of the things that initially drew me to Stackbit is exactly what the problems it solves that I was facing working at an enterprise company with, modern tech stacks, but we weren't, if we had something like Stackbit, it would have solved a lot of the problems that we face. I remember thinking to myself, how does this massive company, how are designers still asking for screenshots, or marketers still asking for screenshots for updates? Like the simplest tasks all of a sudden were so overcomplicated. So it's something that I look back and I'm like, if only we had Stackbit. But
yeah, cross-functional teams usually work better when they are independent enough, right?
Yeah.
And they can focus on the things that they do best. So you want the developers to focus on building components and building great digital experiences, but then you want to be able to hand it over to the business people like marketers and salespeople and product managers, for those folks to actually drive business impact and make changes on their own. And if you just have the separate components, it's kind of hard to do, because the interfaces and the tools used by developers, like a headless CMS, is great for separating code and content and making sure that they can be updated separately. But then the headless CMS is not a great editing platform for somebody who's not technical. And so they end up being dependent on the developer, getting too much into things that they don't want to change and they don't want to mess up on the website. So with Stackbit, you kind of have that delineation of, developers build whatever they want in the tech stack that they want, and then hand that over. And then marketers and business folks can make changes within the guardrails set by developers and designers and drive that business impact.
Exactly. Key word, within the guardrails. Dorian, what about for yourself from a CMO perspective, challenges that you've seen many enterprises face, and really how Netlify is able to come in and solve some of those?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could just say what he said, which captures most of it. I'm just thinking, I'm like, oh, Dan, you really articulated that really well. This is my third time with a web development or the web team reporting into me, into my org. And it's been tough in the past, right? You live in these monolithic architectures that really hamstring you. Right? I don't think people really realize to what level, right? You sort of look at some of these providers and say, oh, they give me everything that I need. I don't need anything else. The challenge is that they restrict you so much so that, one of the companies I was at, we would ship twice a week, and that was it. That was all we could do. And if it was not, before a certain time of day that we sort of noticed something we wanted to change on the front end, it could be 5 days to make a change. Simple changes like changing a button, right? Changing a little bit of text. And so when you're struggling with that from a CMO perspective, where you have ever increasing revenue pressures, we know that right now, with the way the economy is, marketing is taking more and more of a burden on revenue than I think than ever before. And when you cannot get things live, when you cannot get campaigns out to market, really what happens is you can't achieve success, right? You're really stuck. And I think people are feeling that everywhere across enterprises and even down to the mid-market. And I think when we look at what Netlify does, it does what Dan talked about. It allows people to really focus in the areas that they're specialized, right? I know for myself right now, our team uses a backend CMS. I don't want all of my marketers to know how to use that CMS, but I need to get stuff done. So when you look at a Netlify, it allows developers to actually get stuff live faster. It allows us to ship really often. I think Netlify, the average enterprise ships over 100 times a week, which is really impressive when you look at my 2 times a week that I come from. But then you look at from the front end, the amount of flexibility, creativity, and freedom that you have, and not getting stuck in what I call the ticket vortex, where it's just this never-ending world of deprioritization of tickets and things just don't get done. I think that's something that Netlify and Stackbit can bring to the market.
I totally agree. The ticket vortex, that term, I haven't heard that, the ticket vortex term, but the thought of that just gives me chills. I'm like, oh,
yeah, and nothing ever it's always deprioritized, right? There's always something. The poor marketer, I always, I have to feel bad for my brethren, but the poor marketer is just dying to make a small change on a page. There was this one experience I had where I wanted a countdown clock on a landing page. We were on a monolithic architecture. It took 6 weeks to get it done. And my poor campaign team was like, Dorian, we just want a countdown clock.
Yeah.
So really just the pain, it is real. It is very real.
It really is. And I know for both your answers, you've been speaking about, different enterprises and really how Stackbit and Netlify can make an impact. Is there a specific story that you can both think of that comes to mind, a customer success story? Dan, we'll go with you.
Sure. I have a couple of them, and they're equally interesting. So I think I'll share just a couple of those. One of them is probably very close to home. Tiff, this is TELUS, one of the top telcos in Canada. They are one of our first enterprise customers, and they've built this amazing design system that's like atomic design. Everything is made out of the atoms, if you will. So like very basic components, like a text label, a button, images, forms, stuff like that are very granular, if you will. And they've built this in Next.js, and they use Contentful in the backend. And the setup was fantastic from a developer perspective, but the marketers had a really hard time working with the headless CMS system, especially in this atomic design where they had to construct every single section, if you will, from scratch. And it's kind of complex for somebody who's not super technical to start thinking about like, oh, a hero unit is essentially a row that has 2 columns, and each column, now the left one has like 4 rows, and each row has like a different element in it. And then it's a pretty complex way to go about it. And I think they had a training process that took like essentially like a full day for marketers. And even then they go back and forth and do a lot of support, because it's a system that's hard for marketing people to comprehend. And with Stackbit, they went and changed that to like a 5-minute video, because it's a UI that people expect, right? It's just they don't expect it. Usually it comes with strings attached, where it's like it's not a flexible architecture. You're kind of you're getting a very consumer product, not something you can add on to your custom setup. Mm-hmm. So I'm very excited about them. I'm also excited about, Takeda, which is one of the top 10 pharmaceutical companies in the world. They actually started from scratch. They moved on from a monolithic system and evaluated, all the different components of the composable stack. They were like amazing at figuring out this whole new world, and realizing that with Stackbit, they can start from a position where the marketer and the business person gets the same experience, and they can edit, and it doesn't really matter whatever other choices are made by developers. Where is the content stored? How is it deployed? All the other things. So they've built multiple experiences around it, both their marketing sites and their internal tools, internal wikis. They have like really amazing stuff, and they went through this transformation really quickly.
Wow. That's really interesting, both of those customer stories, because with TELUS, it was, they already had their
exactly
project, and, and then whereas Takeda, they recognized it immediately. And I'm not sure if I've seen Takeda, but I've been on some calls with TELUS and seeing Stackbit in action, and it makes me feel, I'm very proud. It's a proud moment to see how they're using it. Dorian, what about yourself for Netlify?
Yeah, I mean, we have a whole host of referenceable wins and successes. Yeah. Some of the ones that I think are most interesting to me, one is from EMIS. So I don't know if you've ever heard of EMIS. They're out of the UK, a major supplier to NHS, which is the big health service provider for the whole country, actually for the whole United Kingdom, I believe. I mean, they used us when we recently had a meeting with one of the members of their team, and they said, because of Netlify, like, we've saved lives. And that was really, really impactful, right? To understand that just the ability to ship faster, to get campaigns out there faster, right? To get information out there faster in itself can save lives is really profound. Some of the other ones, Sennheiser, very big company in Europe, helped them get live much faster, huge impact to their performance. And then even internally, we did a campaign, my own team, from the actual inception of the idea to delivery was about 5 weeks, which is pretty amazing. We proved that using our own platform, Netlify on Netlify, we could just ship so much faster than before and get campaigns live that are really just great for the business, in an amount of time that just would have been inconceivable prior to a solution like Netlify.
Wow, that's great. Those are great stories. Thank you for sharing. Last question I have for you both, and to me the most exciting question, which is what is coming up next for both Stackbit and Netlify? Maybe Dorian, I'll let you start with this one.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I don't know if you've heard the news, but there is no longer just a Stackbit and a Netlify. There's a Stackbit and Netlify. Stackbit, Netlify with Stackbit. However you want to put it, however you want to arrange it. Yeah, so we did acquire Stackbit. We announced that about a week and a half ago, which is super, super exciting for us. As I said earlier, as a marketer, you don't want your team, your campaign managers, to have to understand the technical inner workings of a back-end CMS. And so the amount of freedom that we can unlock for marketers with the partnership with Stackbit, with having Stackbit on board, it's great. We're really excited. And with that, in October, we're going to be doing an event on October 18th and 19th in San Francisco. And we will have some amazing and exciting product announcements around Stackbit, even more heavily integrating with Netlify. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
What about for yourself, Dan?
So obviously, I think this is a fantastic milestone for us. We've been partnering for a long time, and it's aside from the cultural fit and everything, the products have so much synergy among them, right? And I think even today, as you're starting and trying out a new project, we've always deployed automatically to Netlify, and you're getting all this synergy between seeing exactly what's happening in your deployment process, how do things actually get built, how do things get triggered. So the products themselves kind of offer a full spectrum of the enterprise, like a solution for each one of them separately, right? For the architects that bring in the content, to the deployment process and the front end cloud, and then also kind of bringing in the rest of the organization to be able to edit. And I think with we have a lot of plans, right? And you can, some of them I'm sure people can think of as they come so naturally to mind. I think regarding this specific series, you can think about how when working on experimentation and personalization, you can do this, kind of how do you want to split the traffic really easily on the edge, then kind of in Stackbit view the different versions of content, understanding what your users are actually seeing and editing that in an easy way, picking a winner and having those, being close to the user, right? Meeting them where they're at and understanding how to get to market faster. And we have lots of things that we're going to announce, how this would look like in the future. So all excitement on my end.
I totally agree. And it is so, it makes me very excited because when we started this series, it wasn't announced yet or knowledge yet about the Stackbit and Netlify merger. But for me, when we were thinking about this series, I'm like, oh, Netlify and Stackbit, this just makes total sense. And then, fast forward a few weeks, here we are. So it was meant to be. And I'm so happy that this was all coming together for episode 4. So thank you both for connecting with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Bye.